Hey there, Starseeds! Welcome to Beyond the Cosmic Table. We're a group of friends from different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs. We gather around our table and initiate honest and open conversations on how energy and frequencies influence what we create around us. By expanding awareness, we're able to journey with practical guidance leading to our highest awareness and conscious living. So, take a seat and join us at our table. In this episode, Dianne works to release emotional barriers for Julie, Rose, Ebby, and me. Dianne refers to herself as a modern-day shaman. She has blended what she's learned from various modalities into her own through self-discovery and transmuting her own emotional energy. She has worked with a number of clients with success to help improve both emotional blocks and physical discomforts. Listen in as she explains how she arrived with this modality, how it's helped her clients, and also get a little taste of her in action. Dianne, take us away with sharing what led you into this modality and how you use it to help your clients.
Awesome. Well, what led me to it is I started hearing about this emotional blocks or releasing emotional energy. So I dove into that a little bit further. But before I share how I do it, I wanted to go back and introduce like how I share with my clients. A little introduction first, so they become a little bit more aware about energy. Because some people call and they haven't done some of the work that we have done, ladies. So just like to give them a little introduction. So this hopefully will help anyone listening to understand things a little bit better. So the first thing I like to remind everyone I work with is that everything is energy and it can be in all various states that energy presents itself. The best example in our 3D, of course, is water. It can be a liquid, it can be a solid like ice, it can be the vapor, and many also consider plasma another state of water. So with this information and Einstein's famous equation of E equals mc squared, which proves that energy and mass are interchangeable, we can dive into how this may affect us physically. Many of us understand how water can be in the form of an ice mass, which can dam up a river or freeze a small pond. Later on, this solid, of course, can melt into water and then disappear into vapor. We've all seen this when there's water on the sidewalk and the next day it's gone. So water can easily just evaporate. Next, we want to remember that how much of our body is water. The various people have different numbers of percentages, but usually people say between 60 and 70% of our body, depending on age and weight and our lifestyle, but the range is 60 to 70%. So that says the majority of our body is this water that can actually have the ability to portray each of the states of water, including a solid, which is a solid we don't normally think of in our body. We usually just think of like bone as the solid. That energy, though, within us can create barriers for our energy flow, as well as in our cells and our organs. Logic can tell us that these blocks can be in our flow, could be from like toxins or the chemicals in our food, or maybe products that we put on our body that our body doesn't recognize or know how to process, and it can store that away. And you can think of that maybe as a small bit of energy that's stuck in our body. Another way of blocked energy is think about a sedentary lifestyle. Our bodies were designed to move, which actually moves the energy flow within us. We've all seen a stagnant body of water. It's usually not too pretty, and the smell isn't usually too good either. So if we're not drinking enough water to hydrate, then our system can become stagnant as well. A large impact that many of us don't consider are as a possible block in our energy are our thoughts and emotions, our own and others. Yes, emotions and thoughts can actually create barriers within us. They're just energy too. Thought is just a form of energy. If we happen to think negatively or we're focusing on negative things, or the other people around us are negative or carrying negative energy, this energy can create a barrier within our energy flow, just like ice in a dam of a river. And this image is what I got on how the emotional barriers can actually stop or slow our energy flow and eventually cause an imbalance in our mental, emotional, and even the physical body. So many have heard of the chakras. Well, if we have lots of stagnant energy, this blocks up the energy flow of the chakras as well. And this is why so oftentimes we can relate emotional barriers to discomforts in our body. Think of someone who lost someone so dear to them and actually feel pain in their heart from this loss. We can easily see how this person's energy flow through the heart and the related chakra would be slowed, and a barrier could easily form around that loss with the lack of love flowing through the heart. And many of these emotions are present with sadness, depression, anxiety, or however the person is experiencing that loss. My method of releasing the emotional barriers was a progression and blending of the various modalities from books and seminars into self-discovery that just evolved into my own little form of transmuting this emotional energy. I started back in 2017 with the book The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. Like I said, just to expand on the information that I'd heard about releasing emotions. Using the chart in the book and a kitchen magnet, I used this method for a little while and noticed some difference. So I thought this may be something I wanted to explore a little further. Well, around the same time, my love of pendulums had led me to a book by Dr. Eric Hunter. And he introduced me to pendulum healing, which uses a pendulum in the shape of sacred geometry to influence energy through a form of light at a very specific frequency, which impacts energy via photons. Well, Dr. Eric Hunter brought in so many different modalities, energy healing modalities that I'd heard of and or tried, and brought in some of the science behind it to help me really fit a lot of the information into my current belief box at the time. So I started releasing the emotions using the healing pendulum. And from that, I could actually feel the energy as it shifted within me. And then I started feeling it when I was helping others too. I would feel it as a present off my head as it would release. That became so super cool that I really enjoyed experiencing it at a physical level that I could feel them being released. So another day I was dowsing and I kept getting there was an emotion to be released, but when I would go to the chart, it wasn't finding anything there. So since that time, I've started developing my own chart as emotions have come up in my mind space and how to tag different emotions that people were feeling. And I feel this is just a way from my guides to help me understand the lesson more clearly for myself and for others. So that kind of developed into a little bit more understanding on my side. Then during one of my shamanic journeys, I was shown the image of like the inside of a root being pulled out. And this led me to referring to emotional barriers as like a dandelion root, or using this as an example. We snap off the top of dandelion. Sometimes we don't always get the root. So by loosening or easing the energy around the emotional roots out of the physical or soul body, it seems to be less of a shock to the overall energy around the emotional barrier that was there. And I felt that using the light from the healing pendulum to loosen the energy around it with the intentions would help draw that out more purely and completely. Because, of course, the pendulum I use radiates a white light, so that's very pure. So I always found that that image helps a lot of people understand that sometimes it takes a little while to ease an energy out of us. As I release the emotion with the healing pendulum, it's simply a command to the pendulum to release that emotion from the person or energy that we're working with. And that command and our intention to release the barrier is all that really is needed, and then just a little time and patience. I usually channel a little message as we release the emotion, and it's just across all space and time and lifetimes and across maybe ourselves and our organs. And recently I've been guided to add to that little intention command is the DNA. Because think about it, we bring so much with us from other lifetimes. Uh, and so much of our DNA is in the non-physical. So I always set that intention too, if it's a very old emotion or one that's very deep in someone, to release it from the layer of the DNA as well. A couple of the last couple lessons I always share with other people so they have a simple understanding about this is for myself, I would release emotions and then I would be going along and I'd feel like really great. I'd be like, man, I'm doing awesome. I'm loving life. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden it hit me like a brick that I was back at square one. I was depressed, I was sad, I was struggling with motivation, and my perception kept sliding back to the old me. Well, I struggled with this for a while and I fought through it a lot. But then I attended an all-day tapping class. And for those of you who don't know, tapping is just a lot of times hitting certain areas on the skin that's usually tips of the meridians to help energy start flowing through our system. Well, after attending an all-day class, it released a lot within me. And the instructor actually brought something very interesting to my awareness. He said, think about it as you're in a really good place and you're happy and going about life having a great time. Your subconscious recognizes this as a sign of saying, she's ready to learn more lessons. She is mentally and physically, emotionally ready to deal with more of the stuff that's in her, that I'm carrying as barriers or, that I'm dragging along as anchors. So more stuff has come to the surface. So it made so much sense to me after having experienced this for a couple of years on why I would be doing so well. And then all of a sudden I would get smacked again with some old stuff. So I just want to share that with other people so they're aware that this is possible. They could, clear some emotions today and feel really fantastic. And in a couple of weeks, they're going to feel back at square one. And that's why our subconscious is very powerful and won't let anything come to the surface to be released unless we're ready to start working with it. And the last thing that I introduced or would like to share is that I'm a Reiki master, and one day after a very powerful session, client had many tears and gone through some very emotional memories of releasing some things with her family. I was very guided just to infuse her with some good stuff. So I had made another chart of positive emotions. And at the end of a session now, I normally ask if the client is open to receiving positive energy, and everyone always says yes. So I usually infuse a positive, two to four positive emotion is usually what comes up. So it's been an interesting road as it's morphed from so many different types of modalities along the way, but it seems to work well for me, and everyone that I've worked with has really had positive feedback. So I enjoy doing it. How about you ladies? You got some questions or?
Rose, what about your husband's experience working with Dianne for his physical symptoms?
Yeah, I had been a client of Dianne's when she first started. The motion code release is what we called it then. It's now what we know, or what she's transpired into, an emotional barrier relief. And it's even so much more than that. Like Dianne mentioned, she's a Reiki master, she's a shaman, and it just kind of all envelops each other. My husband, actually, we went to Dianne for some relief, for some medical relief for his back issues. And when we came to her, we were very hopeful, for one, and very open to receiving this method of healing. And he was very open to receiving this method of healing. So we had a session with Dianne, and we came across some previous life instances where he's actually had the injury that he has right now in a previous life. So we were able to release a lot of those emotional barriers for him. And actually, I really saw him cry for the first time, releasing those barriers and those emotions. So it was very powerful healing that Dianne was able to do for us. And we were very thankful for it.
Awesome.
I brought my husband also, and I remember he was having this mysterious severe pain in his joints, and Dianne and I and my husband were sitting at the table, and Dianne, you helped release things for me, but which was fabulous, but it was more profound what happened with my husband. And I don't remember what emotion it was, or I just remember how I felt afterwards. And instantly after you released whatever it was, there was a big shift in the room, and I was tearing up, and I think you were tearing up, and my husband wasn't, but we were like, we could just feel the change of energy in the room. And it was great because slowly after that, he started recovering from whatever ailment, he was doing. So it was pretty amazing to feel something like that you can't see or touch, you know?
Well, it was exciting for me that you could feel it too. Because I'm looking at you and I'm looking at him. I'm like, did this just happen?
Yeah. I guess it was great you and I were in the room together then.
Right.
Just to validate.
Well, I know he was doing so many other things, but hopefully that just really nudged him along as
Absolutely.
well.
I have another question.
Sure.
So immediately when we're sitting down, our 3D mind is like, I want to do this. I want to do it now. I'm ready. How come it doesn't just happen all at once? And, we're like layers and want to release. We can only release things a little bit at a time. But just the way you introduced it with, and your example with the dandelion root, loosening things up, you're kind of shaking things up to get it ready for the future releases. I'm sure people are asking you that. Your clients are asking you that too. How come we just can't release? Sorry, I pounded on my table. How come we can't release them all right now? I'm ready. I want it now. We have that mentality. But that's fabulous, the way that you described it. And I'm sure that helps a lot of people understand the time that it takes and the effort. I don't want to say effort, but commitment probably to release these things and to know, in your example, when it's time to release again. And it's like, shoot, because I keep thinking, I got to do it again. I just did it. But it's just a great reminder.
I'd like to comment on when you did several of my family members, and that was really impactful. The thing I found really interesting is a couple of times you and I have sat down to do mine, and nothing ever came up. And I'm like, okay, is it that I'm not ready to release? I didn't feel that was the case. And you were like, no, there's nothing coming up. And I think you may have called me a robot and several other names. But one time you actually said, oh my God, something's finally coming through. And you said, I love that you give the age, approximate age of when this has affected the person. So you told me this happened at approximately 40 years of age, and it was traumatic and it was shocking. And I thought, well, I can't think of anything that would have been shocking or traumatic. And this is like, oh my God, 25 years ago, but it's easy for me to remember things like that. And nothing was coming up. And then you said, I believe you said it had something to do with witnessing someone being harmed. And what it was, I had a job where I was in retail loss prevention, and one of my people that I care deeply for, I had to review videotape where they got into an altercation with two shoplifters, and I had to keep rewinding the video and seeing her get hurt over and over and over again. And it really did disturb me. After that, I became very overprotective. And it was interesting to me how you picked up on that. And as soon as you did the release, I felt a big shift. And I felt the shift in my relationship with her, actually, where I didn't feel so like I needed to protect her anymore. And I found that really amazing, very amazing. Loved it.
Well, and of course, when we were doing yours, Abby, because we'd gotten nothing for so long, when I first got that, I was just, your ego's trying to chime in and say, no, no. But I'm like, no, there's something there. So I'm so glad that we were able to, lighten that energy a little bit for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's a lot of times, it's not even something like, how often would that trigger actually come up if you're not in another situation that would make me want to protect her, right? So it's not like something that's so evident. But once it was released, it was a definite shift in energy.
That's so fun. Thank you for sharing, all of you.
I think it's so cool that, because we don't recognize going through our lives when we're not aware of these barriers that are taking place, that things that happen to us, such as what Ebby just explained, can impact us in an emotional way. until you take someone back to it to release it. Am I making sense? Like,
absolutely.
When I had my first release with you, which was, I don't know, maybe like a year or so ago, you took me back to a time where I wouldn't even remember. It was like when I was a baby. I think the emotion that we were releasing at that time was, honestly, I don't remember, but I want to say horror or something pretty traumatic. And I wouldn't have remembered it myself. However, my sister shared a story with me because she's 9 years older than me. She shared a story with me that happened at that time that would match that emotion. So it was really interesting. And you were able to release it. And who knows how that emotion had been impacting me throughout my life before it was released. So I just think it's really neat now that we're aware of that these emotions impact us in so many different ways.
Yeah, like you're so right. Kind of to piggyback on what Ebby said about the whole age frame or age reference, like a lot of these trapped emotions or blocked emotions are from like our younger childhood, right? And how many times, and being a mother myself, how many times does something happen to our kid and we're like, oh, don't worry, shake it off, brush it off. Don't worry about that. Get up. So you don't have to cry. Don't cry about it. Right. And like, are we verbally blocking these emotions for our children that they're later going to have to go to Dianne to for therapy? Right.
That's very true.
Well, the thing is, I should put this as part of my introduction, is that, when we're children, there's so many things that happen around us that we don't know how to mentally process. Like if we're the little kid on the playground and a boy makes fun of us, or calls us a name, that can really impact us because we're like, oh my gosh, the world is supposed to be loving and kind and everyone's supposed to be nice to me. And this boy's just making fun of me. Any kind of emotion that the person would feel at that time as children, you could really just, that can become that huge barrier within you that you can carry for so long. But looking at it back now as adults, when I explain situations to people that may have happened in their younger, 4, 5, 6 age range when they can remember things and you explain it, they're like, oh, that really bothered me at the time, but now I just see, somebody was being mean or mom didn't mean what she said. She just, said it. Or you'd hear the altercation between two parents. That's one thing that's a huge problem is, children hear their parents arguing or disputing and they're thinking, my parents, they both love me and they're supposed to be full of love, but then you hear them arguing, that can create a lot of emotions within children that they don't know how to process. But now as adults, they can look back and they can see how that may be affecting them now.
What another thing that brings up is it's also bringing to mind that we're teaching children to not acknowledge their feelings at the time. We're teaching them bury it, don't share, and all of that. So that was a really good point, Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even children. The other day, a coworker slammed their finger in the door and she jumped and she didn't want to cry and she was just bottling it up and just I'll shake it off. I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like you slammed your finger in the door. I bet it hurts. And she's like, yes, it hurts. And she just burst into tears and it was just like, wow, it really, really hurts, and she ended up like going to the doctor and stuff. But it's kind of fascinating how we started talking about this 4 years ago, and you brought it to the group, Dianne, and we all just kind of, delved into it with you and have become clients of yours now and have done sessions with you. And it's just amazing how it reshapes your belief box on a lot of things around emotions, right?
Absolutely. Because think about in our professional career, men, women alike, things happen in your professional career and you are not allowed to either express what you really want to express in the workplace. And this, of course, can happen with families too.
Dianne, you also had a situation where you did my sisters, and Melissa you brought up something that happened when she was, 23, 25 and a half. You were very specific about that age. And she couldn't, I don't remember what the emotion was, But as soon as you said 25 and a half, she couldn't figure out what it was. I knew immediately what it was. Like Kim's older sister, I was able to see it as an observer. And what it was, our mother died when Melissa was 2.5. So when Jordan, her son, reached that same age, it triggered something in her that brought out an emotion of fear that he may go through the same experience she did. And I thought, I mean, you had no idea of that time, just like you didn't have the idea of when I was 40. So I find it real fascinating how you do what you do, the whole thing. I just love it.
Well, I'm still fascinated sometimes. Now more that I'm getting more images as my detail, and then to explain it to somebody and have something that I've seen, clients have called and said, yeah, that actually happened in this lifetime. So they have a vivid, knowing memory of something that I'm telling them about. And so, yeah, it's still kind of like, wow. But the ultimate goal, of course, is just to lighten people's energy and help them more clearly understand their souls.
So you just mentioned this lifetime. We've all gave examples of this lifetime, but you actually bring forward emotions from past lifetimes as well.
Absolutely. And now the interesting thing is I normally, or, most times we can figure out a pattern. So like if something had happened in a prior life, I always ask, how is it playing out in this lifetime? And that's the interesting thing on how something may have happened in a prior lifetime or a different aspect of us of what we're viewing is how it's playing out now. So something that may have happened in a family situation previously, somebody can relate to how it's happening in their work environment now. Or if it happened, how I would portray as like their profession or their way of making money in a previous incarnation, previous lifetime, that it's now being affected, this life in their personal life, or maybe how their situation on how they're viewing things, our perception on how we view certain situations. That alone can create huge emotional barriers within people. I mean, think about our current situation now with the pandemic. People have emotions coming up that they don't understand, and it's coming out in all different ways. So it's really interesting to see how they tie the two together if we're able to do that.
So when you have a client come to you, are they looking for a specific emotion to be released? Are they struggling with something and they come to you and say, I'm struggling with this particular emotion? And then you try to find where that emotion stemmed from and release it? Or is it more they're just looking for emotions to be released in general and then you narrow in on one or two?
Normally the first appointment, a lot of people are just looking to see kind of what it's like and to see if they've got some things that are ready to be released. Some people come and they're like, I have these emotions, and can we figure out what they're tied with? And sometimes when that's the case, like if they come to me with, they're like, I'm depressed. Well, if we dive in, we find a lot of layers of anxiety. So it's not always the specific emotion, but you can see how it would tie in. And other people have come to me with a discomfort in like, their knee or their back. And although I can never tie specifically what I'm releasing to, I never want to say exactly what I've done, but you just hope that whatever layer that their subconscious has allowed them to release that night will help them physically if they are having physical issues as well. Did that answer the question?
Yes, that did answer the question. And so another question I have, because I know you're as much into a healthy lifestyle and nutrition as I am, food can also cause trapped emotions within us, where that food is either manufactured or grown from, or, just the vibration of food. So have you ever done a release where it's been an emotion that's stemmed from maybe something someone ate? I'm just curious about that.
I've done a couple where people were like, they were in a lifetime where they were starved, and maybe that could be like just because of food shortage, back in prior lives times, we often think of like living in a cave and not having food. Then it may show up as like a digestive problem in this lifetime. But as far as a specific food, I'm trying to remember if I've had anything with a specific food. No, I mean, I've had like food in general that, that like perhaps their diet has no nutritional value. I mean, think of what is it? What the bleep do you know that the guy at McDonald's, or I forget, but if the body's not getting the supplements or the nutrients that it needs, that came up one time. I was just like, what?
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, if something like that
Mhm.
would come up, because I mean, it's so important what we put into our bodies, and it can definitely alter the way that we feel. So I was just curious.
Yeah, and I think it was that, like, it was one of those lifetimes where somebody was like starved in the past, and like now in this lifetime they're starving their body of nutrients. So you can see easily where the tie would be there.
Very cool.
Great questions. Love it.
Was anybody interested in having you do a release today? Does anybody have a trapped emotion that they would like released? Oh, we see Julie and Abby. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. How about Julie first?
Are we looking for something specific, Julie, or?
I could give you a list. Not of an emotion, but maybe some physical ailments, or like I'm struggling with, you're talking about eating the right foods and working out, and I feel really blocked, like something's blocking me from heading that way, I guess.
All right. Worthlessness comes up.
What was that?
Being worthlessness.
Yeah.
And we'll ask if this is from this lifetime. It's not from this lifetime. In the lifetime that it happened, well, first of all, we like to ask, does Julie need to understand more about this one? Okay, you do. In the lifetime that it became a barrier, were you expressing yourself as a male? You were female energy. Is it physical? Isn't it physical? Emotional. There's actually an emotional level that you were feeling worthless. How would you feel worthless at an emotional level? The image that I'm getting is you had good children. There were multiple children, and there was one of the children was physically challenged, and you weren't able to help. You weren't able to help the child to the ability that you would have liked to because of the disabilities. So is this worthlessness portraying now in, oh, okay, so whatever the ailment was for the child, you weren't able to supplement the children's nutrients the way that you, like a mother would. I'm not sure if the food wasn't available for, no, there was food there, but I'm not sure if the child had disabilities with eating, or what the child could consume, but you weren't able to get the nutrients the child needed into the child. I'm not sure if he like rejected everything or what the situation was. There's more that we need to know. Okay, that was it. So think about that now as you struggled with the child being able to get the nutrients. You're kind of like reliving that now. Not putting the nutrients in yourself, what's actually needed. It's almost like punishing yourself in a little way, that in that lifetime you weren't able to help that child. So this time you're like going, I'm not going to give my body the nutrients that it needs and the right foods that it needs, just subconsciously. So we'll ask if there's anything more that we need to understand. They're just saying, like, be sure, like, to just follow intuitively what your body needs. They're like, may not make sense. Maybe you're guided to eat a pizza some night. They're like, just, you have the intuition to know what your body needs. So maybe today it needs vegetables, and you've been eating vegetables all week, so maybe it's time for a splurge day. So they're saying be intuitive. But are you ready for this one to be released?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and just get my little cosmic merkaba pendulum. I'm just going to go ahead and say, release the emotion from worthlessness from Julie across all space, time and dimensions, from timelines, lifetimes, And since this is with the physical, we're just going to go into releasing it from the cells, the organs, tissues, and bone. And we'll go back to that layer of DNA, release the emotion of worthlessness from Julie's DNA, so it's no longer replicated and reproduced within her. Allow this light to be transmuted back to the universe to develop. There you go.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll feel a little bit lighter, huh?
Yeah, I feel tingly, like especially in my right arm. As soon as you brought that up, very interesting. Not sure why there, but
Well, and the right arm would be, just think about right side is moving forward in life. So, and if you're right-handed, is that where the hand goes to the mouth?
uh-huh.
So, it's very interesting.
Thank you. Wow. Cool.
Okay, I'm next. And I
Okay.
don't know how often you've done something like this, but I'm looking at this as being proactive. I'm planning to move in the next month or two into a new home. So
Mhm.
what I'd like to do is make sure that there's no emotional barriers, that they're cleared up before I even start on this next part, rather than wait for them to come up, and also for you to replace them with positive uh
They're just positive emotions. Think about like
positive
love.
emotions. Right.
Well, to answer your first question, yes, I have had my guides or my clients' guides do this. And what they have told me in the past is something comes up and we get this whole story and I ask, how is it affecting their life now? And I get, we're pre-paving. So they have allowed me to release emotions that would have affected the person in the future. And I actually had one client, there was like 5 or 6 of these. The person was doing so well that they wanted to help her move forward, and they wanted that path to be very smooth. So we are absolutely going to go check in with you, Ebby, to see if there's anything regarding your upcoming move that may be blocking your path. Abby, you're back to the robot. I got nothing for you. You have paved the road yourself, girlfriend.
Well, this is great because there's going to be listeners out there that are going to see this as possible.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not saying something may come up later, but right now it sounds like I'm really getting a feel that there's nothing right there that's blocking you in your near future. So go find
Thank
that
you
place.
for that.
You are welcome.
I am very present in how I manifest, and those, in a routine, and taking care of a lot of this. But like we said earlier, you never know. I mean, there's things in there that can pop up from so far back that just kind of blindsides you.
I literally just heard she's got this.
Thank you, Dianne.
You're
Or
welcome.
she's just not human.
Oh my, Rose, do you have anything you want to dive into specifically, or what's on your plate?
Sure, if we've got a little bit of time, if you just want to see if I know there's a lot of changes coming for me. So perhaps any emotions, future emotions around that, or current emotions.
Okay. All right. Is this a current emotion? Yeah. Okay, the emotion is worry. And is it from this lifetime? If not from this lifetime, do we need to know more about it? Yeah. Okay. In the lifetime, worry was created as a barrier. Was she a male? You were a male. Was the worry regarding a family situation? Did it have to do with housing? Was it what's coming up is like the means to support your family or to like, care for your family. Worrying that the decisions that you make will affect your whole family. And they're like showing me like there's a layer of you from this past life. There's a subconscious thought in your mind now that like from this tiny dot of a decision that you make, they're showing me like you're concerned that it's gonna like think about a white light hitting a prism and how it expands out. There's a layer of worry that, oh my gosh, what if like I said, this is completely subconscious because I know you that you're doing a lot of work now and you've cleared so much, but they're saying we're going to get rid of this one, but it had to come up now because of the amount of changes, like you just said, that are going to be happening for you. So there's a layer of worry that just your care for your family is like what the core of all of this is. You're wondering how the decision, or like back then you were worrying about how the decision would impact your family. So that subconscious thing is coming up now in some level that, you have a lot going on, and you know that a lot of your decisions are based on, we do have a lot of emotional around some of those big decisions in life. So this is just a simple way of it's kind of, I'm hearing like it's part of the past to get rid of that, but it's a little bit of pre-paving for the future. So you're kind of getting a blend of both of them here. So is there more that we need to understand about this? They're like, no, you know now that it's just your intuition is going to be your best guidance. Follow that gut feeling of the heart. But they're saying you can release this layer and just make that anchor a little bit lighter as you move forward. As small as it is, it's just going to be a little bit smaller. So, do you have any questions before we release it?
No, not at all. And it totally like hit the nail on the head and resonates very deeply with me. So I received a message this morning that it totally mirrors that message. So, and I like when you were talking about it, I just kind of like saw like the ripples in the water, like a rippling effect, like how that just a little pebble thrown in the water and how far that travels, right? And so, yeah, totally resonates.
Well, let's get rid of this one and move forward more easily. So we're just going to go ahead and release the emotional barrier of worry from Rose across all space, time, and dimensions. We're going to release it from the cells, the organs, the tissues, and the bone. And we're also going to release it from the mental, emotional, physical, and energetic auras around Rose, as well as we'll go back with the past life, we'll go back to the DNA to release it from the DNA as well. So it no longer replicates. We can move forward in life with the more pure, clean energy. All right. Well, Rose, hopefully you feel a little bit lighter as well after that.
Of course, I always do. Thank you so much for that, Dianne.
You are so welcome.
I would like to try, actually.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking of something. So this is kind of funny, and I don't know if we'll discover anything here from, well, certainly nothing I remember from this lifetime, but perhaps a past lifetime. But over the last couple of years, I've suddenly become a very anxious, nervous passenger in a car, where I would say 50% of the time, if I'm riding with someone, I fear my life. This just happened this past weekend. It's happened with a couple of different people. It doesn't happen with everyone. But I find that if somebody isn't driving perfectly, which is funny because I don't drive perfectly, but if they're not, I just get really, really scared. And it's to the point where I'm annoying, where I have to tell the driver, like, can you slow down? And I'm sure they're in perfect control, but I feel out of control. So lately I've just been saying to myself, like, there's gotta be something from a past life that all of a sudden is creeping up, because I have not been this way all my life. This is new. Is this a thing with my age, or what's going on? Because these people aren't driving like recklessly. So I don't know where that fear is coming from. So just curious if you find anything.
Well, as I'm sitting here listening to you, they're showing me why you are.
Why?
I'm like, do I have to dive into the emotion? They're like, no, this is it. And the first thing they showed me an onion, and you've taken off a huge layer, so that's why it's come up. But they're showing me you were on the back of a horse, and you were riding with somebody else, so you weren't in control of the horse. And I see you flying off the back.
Oh, jeez.
And I kept seeing it over and over, because like you were talking, and I kept seeing this horse and see the onion. Then I saw the horse come, and you went flying off. So the person jerked the horse a little bit, and the horse reacted, and you didn't have enough time to respond, and you went flying off the horse.
Oh, wow.
So I'm gonna ask. Go ahead.
Well, that's weird that this didn't affect me up until recently. So I don't know.
But some layer that you've peeled back, 'cause I know you've been doing a lot of work on yourself, with other things, and you peeled this back, and I'm like going, okay, do I need to ask about the emotion? They're like, no, you can see what it is, but do we have to figure out what was the first thing that you said? See if I buzz. Anxious?
Yeah, anxious, scared, nervous.
Yeah, and my head's like exploding with energy right now. So that is it, and it's because of this past lifetime. Is there more that she needs to understand about this? I'm hearing that there was other things in that lifetime that made it resemble like what you're kind of going through now, like your move and all of the work that you've been doing. And they're like, that stuff isn't important, but you've come to this part now that you're ready to understand it. But it is, I'm seeing like a very deep root. So, like when you see like an old tree, they always say that the root system underneath the tree is like a glacier, I guess, probably. But I'm not sure why it hasn't come up before for you.
Okay.
But so, well, they keep telling me more and more. So they're like, think about in your life now how you've really taken off on that horse. I mean, a horse moves forward and you're like going full bore. And that's maybe why it came up, because now the horse is going maybe a little bit too fast and you're afraid of getting bucked off. So, you're riding forward in life, think about a car, you're moving very fast and you're afraid of getting, tossed off the track. So.
Well, I'm ready to release that emotion, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't mind. I'm just making sure, is there anything else we need to understand before we release it? I'm getting them right. There's something. Okay, the last thing that they're telling me, and I think this is the last thing, and they're like, don't worry, like you're going too fast, or don't worry about getting bucked off now. Because when you're moving full bore ahead, sometimes you're like, maybe I should slow down a little bit. They're like, no, we got you. Hold on and just go straight for it. You're not going to fall off this time.
Okay.
So now we're going to ask, is that now they're like, okay, now you can let it go. I'm going to finish the story. All right. So we're going to get rid of that anxiety, that worry from Kim, releasing it across all the layers of the onion that we can possibly do, from timelines and lifetimes, releasing it from memories, any thoughts that come into our mind, releasing that anxiety about going too fast in life and just allow ourselves to move forward. Release it across all space, time, and dimensions, from cells, organs, tissues, and bone, from the DNA. So it crosses all the dimensions. It no longer replicates within us. Release that anxiety. There you go. So hopefully that improves.
Thank you.
Slowly in the coming weeks.
Can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I can't either.
I have a question on this. Okay,
Yeah.
so I understand that a vehicle is the modern day horse for us, but could this possibly be also because, Kim, since you've been recently in Arizona, haven't you been seeing a lot of wild horses lately? Like, I mean, how often does somebody see that?
Well, I intentionally go to see them. They
Well,
hang out
yeah.
at it.
Right. But I mean, how often does somebody have that experience to be able to do that, right? So I wonder if seeing these horses are tapping into an area that would never be tapped otherwise. You know what I mean? And that was an example of when you had no control over what you were in.
Yeah, so that anxiousness started before my move here. However, I did vacation a couple of years ago in Tennessee and got on a horse for the first time in many, many years. And I would say that it was around that time, that year, that these feelings started to kick in with the passenger in the car. So maybe what you're saying is right. I don't know. That's interesting.
It is interesting how the subconscious mind, I mean, I think Ebby's on, it could very well make sense. And now that you say the timing with the previous time of, on a horse, and then now you're seeing horses. So in your subconscious mind, maybe that has come up to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all fascinating what's in our subconscious mind.
It really is.
Lifetime and other lifetimes. And
yeah absolutely. Because you're totally like where you are supposed to be, Kim, and, riding the horse may have initiated that anxiety at a subconscious level, but perhaps seeing the wild horses, which Ebby, like Ebby said, that's not something we all get to see. I've never seen it. Right. Mm-hmm. But you went there specifically looking for them. You don't know what specific time they'll be there, if they'll be there, but when you go, you see them. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that is like a time, just kind of that significance or that sign for you that, you know what, it's time to release that. So, fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Basically, horses are your trigger and Ebby's an alien.
Great.
Well, how fun. Thank you, ladies, so much. This was amazing. I love sharing the story, as you know. So hopefully you guys will feel a little bit lighter in the coming days as well.
Thank you, Dianne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dianne.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.
All right. It's our hope that after listening to Dianne and our conversation, that you have a better understanding of how emotional energy that has become trapped in the body can wreak havoc on our well-being in various ways. If you're interested in learning more about Dianne and her services, please visit our website at balance-mindbodyspirit.com. You can use coupon code PODCAST25 for 25% off any first-time service. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with a new episode on a popular topic, spirit guides. If you have any requests for topics for us to discuss around the table, feel free to direct message us on Instagram at Beyond the Cosmic Table.